Hello, BookTube. I had some errands to run first thing this morning, and as a result, my feet were inevitably drawn towards the Brattle Bookshop in downtown Boston. It's beautiful, almost cool summer day, just bright blue skies, gentle breezes that feel like they're coming off the water, and no hint of the heat and humidity that gripped us last week. I think the humidity at least is returning soon, but today it was just a joy to be out and about. Uh, and my errands weren't particularly close to the Brattle Bookshop, but I went anyway. It's been a while, and the last time I was there it was awful hot and awful humid, which isn't really that much of a problem for me. I'm very happy for the bean, who gets completely bedraggled by the heat. But those of you, I imagine that all of you by now know the Brattle is a used bookstore in Boston. They are basically my bookshop. I love them. Go all the time. And used to go even more often than I do. For 25 years, I worked in a bookstore, a retail bookstore, literally down the block and around the corner from the Brattle, easily within walking distance for lunch. So I went every day. I don't go every day anymore. But I went today and I got a pile of books. I got 50 pounds of books that, once again, fit in that repurposed Frankenstein leather shoulder bag just perfectly. Every time I do a Brattle haul or a used book haul of any kind, someone will always pipe up. In fact, multiple people in my email, because I leave my email on every video. Feel free to email me about anything. Except, kindly don't give me homework. If you give me homework, I'm going to ignore you. But quite a few people email me over the course of these mentions and say, you know, it's great that that leather bag is working out for you, but you put us through half a dozen videos about trying to find the right bag and then about actually taking a knife to that bag and making it the thing you want. Surely, if you've given us that much in the way of being invested, we should see the bag. You should do a follow-up video. So maybe tomorrow, maybe there'll be a special episode of Bag Tuesday for tomorrow. But I have yet to hit any kind of limitation with that thing. It is the most amazing thing in the world. I can stuff any amount of books inside it, which is exactly what I wanted. You don't remember the Bag Tuesday drama, but I had a canvas shoulder bag. The only reason that I had to go through that whole psychodrama of replacing my shoulder bag is because my canvas bag was wearing out. But the reason that I went with it in the first place is because it was absolutely bottomless. It was a TARDIS. And all of the other bags that I used and I gave trial runs to and whatnot, I was always thinking, well, that'll be the one quality that you'll have to sacrifice. But I don't appear to be able. I think I've come full circle to that quality. But anyway, let's look at the books. We have 2 paperbacks and a bunch of hardcovers, of course, because when you don't have a beast of burden to carry things around with you, you find lots of heavy books. The first paperback is something that I gather is now beloved. I missed it completely. I have never read this thing. It's The Mobile Library, The Case of the Missing Books by Ian Sansom. In a cute little paperback here, that this is a Harper perennial paperback, so this had to have had a lifetime in a few different formats before it got to them. And it sounds right up my alley. I don't know why I'd never known about it. This is from 2006, which is right when I was getting back into reviewing, so maybe I just missed it. But this sounds just great. It introduces Israel Armstrong, one of literature's most unlikely detectives. Israel is an intelligent, shy, passionate, sensitive sort of soul. He's Jewish, he's vegetarian, he could maybe do with losing a little weight, and he's just arrived in Ireland to take up his first post as a librarian. But the library's been shut down, and Israel ends up stranded on the North Antrim coast, driving an old mobile library van. There's a lot of nice scenery, but 15,000 fewer books than should be necessary. Who on earth steals that many books? How? When would they have the time to read them all? I'll try not to take that personally. And is there any way in this godforsaken place where he can get a proper cappuccino and a decent newspaper? Israel wants some answers. So it sounds like a mobile library cozy mystery series. Some of you must know this. I seem to have missed it completely. And I get the impression there's more than one book in the series, but I'm going to gobble this down. This will be, an hour and a half's reading. So I was happy to find it, happy to take a risk on it. Then this next one, part of an ongoing thing. When you have a shop like the Brattle, where they're out looking for books all the time, they're out on buys all the time, and the stock is constantly changing. When that is true, if I embark on a mental reading project of some kind or other, if I envision in my mind, baby, if I envision in my mind that I want a big project maybe at some point in the near future, the likely candidate being that list that I always talk about, of that amorphous author list that's always rotating very slowly in the back precincts of my reading mind, a list of authors who I have not consigned to the outer darkness that I think are worth a systematic reread. So not here and there, oh no, it's been a while since I read this book, but there's a small list of authors where I'm going to read everything systematically in order to see if I have misjudged them, in order to see if their estimate will go any higher with me. I do that regularly. I do that with 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 authors every year. And if you have a plan like that, it helps to have a shop like the Brattle, where you're going to be encountering the backlist of every author in the world. Slowly, I have been accumulating the backlist of one of those authors, Iris Murdoch. And I've been accumulating them in these Penguin orange spine trade paperbacks. This is the Good Apprentice, with a Rembrandt cover there. And it's a very serious and funny novel about trying to be good. I read all of Iris Murdoch as they were coming out. I was told by the New York Review of Books, by the Times Literary Supplement, the Lit Sup back then, the London Review of Books. I was told by all and sundry that this was a major, major author. And I was told the same thing about Doris Lessing and Nadine Gordimer, and nothing ever came of it. I read these things as they were coming out, and just... I was told this about so many authors at the time. This came out in the 70s, is that right? 1985. I was told that about so many authors. I was told that about, Robert Stone, including lots of other people. And it didn't work for me. It seemed almost entirely reputation and very little in the way of backing it up. So I let it go. Just let it go. Like everybody else in the world, I read John Bailey's book about Iris Murdoch, but I let the novels go. And slowly, I am building a collection. I think this is my 4th one of these orange spine Penguin trade paperbacks. These are the form in which I originally ignored this author, in which I originally dismissed her. After slogging my way through her books, they all seemed so arch, so incredibly overwritten. I'm slowly finding these, and once I have a critical mass of them, probably 6 or 8, then I will commence a systematic reread. I'm just going to leave it to chance until then, so this is just going to go on the shelf with the other Iris Murdoch orange spine trade paperback Penguin paperbacks. And then once it reaches critical mass, I will launch myself onto it and see what I can make. But I don't need to have every last word by the author. Then this next one is a format thing. It's canonical, at least for me. It's a classic, but and I have it. I have the ebook and I have a paperback, a mass market paperback. But I wanted this format. This is the Eustis Diamonds by Anthony Trollope in this Everyman's Library thing. Somebody already put a plastic covering on it. It's got the cloth bookmark. I just like these things. I like the way they look on the shelf. They aren't always my preferred version for any book that's on their list. But I saw this. I very much wanted it. I have one other edition of the Eustis Diamonds, but I can always stand another one. And this is a heck of a book. We did a read-along of this years ago on this channel, and it was a hoot. I still get emails about those earlier Trollope read-alongs, and the one I get more emails about than anything is the Eustis Diamonds. Then this next one I found is one of these big omnibus editions. This isn't the exact omnibus edition that I want. I already have an omnibus edition of this author from Fall River Press, and there's one that I want, those big Avenel things with the original cover artwork. I know they did one. This is Rudyard Kipling, and I know they did one for him. This is not that. I just liked how stately it looked. It's just a stately, red hardcover that has lots and lots of illustrations all throughout. full-page illustrations and also spot illustrations all throughout. And this has the Jungle Books, first and second Jungle Books, and Kim. But it also has Puckapook's Hill, Stocky and Company, and Just So Stories. So quite a bit of Kipling. I think the same selection is in the Fall River book that I have of Kipling. It's just that one is called, it has the title Jungle Books. It isn't just called Rudyard Kipling. So what I need to do, I need to take that volume off the shelf and see if they are actually the same. I like Kipling quite a bit, far more than I'm allowed to like him in the 21st century. But I don't like him enough to have identical volumes. So I have to see. That one's rather deceptively called Jungle Books, but it's way too big to be just the Jungle Books. It might be this volume. Remainder houses often did that. They would take a block of text. Once somebody had gone to the bother of pulling together a text and adding illustrations to it, and spot illustrations and typesetting everything, that's a huge amount of work. Once you've got that text and everything's in the common domain, you can just sell that text to another remainder house. So they don't have to worry about doing it themselves. It could be that that's what's happened here, but I wasn't sure. And when you're out in the Brattle sale lot, I've mentioned the sale lot before, there are hundreds and hundreds, thousands of books out there that are $1, $3, and $5. And when you're out there and you've got a dollar book in your hand and you're not sure whether or not it's a double, get it. Just get it. The only inconvenience is going to be carrying it around. You'll kick yourself if you don't. Then this next one, I had this once upon a time. When did you first come out? 2006. Again, I had this once upon a time. I think I bought it. I don't think... it's from W.W. Norton, who are my besties, but I don't think I knew them again. I'd been in book reviewing for a long time, and then I left for a long time. And in 2006, I was just beginning to come back into the world of book reviewing, just beginning to make contact with publishers and authors and publicists and whatnot, start to get books coming to the house. I don't think I ever got this. I had it, and I think I just bought it from the bookstore. I worked in a bookstore at the time. You got a whopping big discount. And I got rid of it at one point or another. I can almost trace the thought of why I did. I found this, The Richness of Life, The Essential Stephen Jay Gould, which are column selections by the columnist and evolutionary biologist Stephen Jay Gould, who for years and years and years had a column in Natural History magazine and used to bring out regularly, almost every year, used to bring out a new book-length collection of those columns with a new introduction by himself, maybe a few footnotes. And I'd be willing to bet that the thought process I had when I got rid of this the first time was, well, you have all the books, so why do you need an anthology? Little guessing that if I agree with the editor here is Stephen Rose, if I agree with the editor, if I agree with the criteria of what he selects, then this might do service for a lot of those other books. A lot of the individual books have filler. They have stuff in them that I would never reread. And I seem to remember having a very positive impression of this collection. And true to form, I don't have all the individual books anymore. I have 4 or 5 of them, but not all of them. I passed up one today. The one that he did on the Burgess Shale. I passed that up. It was right there in the sale lot. So I have never seen this. After I got rid of it, I've never seen it out in the wild. So I was very happy to see it. And when it comes to another Brattle yardstick, a kind of... when it comes to another Brattle yardstick, one of the goals here in the Brattle sale lot is that you want to find a keeper. You want to find things you'll be keeping and not just recycling it to the little free library or, a charity sale or back to the Brattle. You want to find things like that. Oh, God. Oh, baby. This is where I'm putting all the books, little girl. Oh, all right. Hang on just a second here. Hang on. Let's get those out of the way so you can do your Frieda yoga. All right. There you go. Ooh. 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 Anyway, what was I saying? One of the things that you want to do at the Brattle is find keepers. You want to find things that you know you're going to hold on to for the rest of your life. Like, for instance, this. I have now the hardcover format of this book that I most want, so I'm not going to get rid of it. Whereas the mobile library, it might turn out to be all fluff. I might not like it at all. It was worth a gamble because these things aren't much of a gamble. The Kipling book, I like the way it looks, but if it's a double for the one I have, I'm not going to keep both of them. This thing is definitely that. This is definitely a keeper, the richness of life. But this probably also fulfills one other yardstick of the Brattle, which is which of the things that I get in any given day are going on the reading list for that night. No waiting, no sitting, throwing it into an alcove somewhere and not remembering it for a year, like way too many people do, even book people. And this is a strong candidate. Probably I will read a great number of the essays in this thing. Then we have a new book that I saw it at the Brattle. It was dirt cheap, so I got it because I have an e-copy, but I don't have a print copy anymore. I found this. Abraham Verhese's book, The Covenant of Water, his big, fat, new novel about a family that is sort of beset by water. The family whose fates seem intertwined with water of one kind. I've read this already. I've read it. I read the ebook, and then I got an advance copy that I don't see it over there. I got an advance copy. It's probably long gone, and read it again, and I was tremendously impressed by this thing. I was less impressed than all the rest of the world by his billions, squintillion selling book, Cutting for Stone. All the rest of the world liked that book better than I did. But this, I thought, when I immediately finished it, I thought that was extremely good. This was a huge amount of work that you had to do to write this thing. But the more I let it sit, the more certain scenes, a couple in particular, really stuck with me. And that has stayed true. So probably by the end of the year sometime, I will reread this. And then we have historical fantasy is what it really is. If this is from 2006 as well, I'm going to plot. 2009. I got this from the publisher. I'm pretty sure I read it. I liked it. I don't remember if it made it onto one of my year-end Steve Reads lists. But this is by Brooks Hansen, and it is called John the Baptizer. And it's a novel about John the Baptist that I remember really liking. And it's been, well, over a decade, so it's high time I read it again. It was there at the Brattle. It was dirt cheap in a nice, durable hardcover. I love biblical fantasy fiction is basically what this is. We don't know anything about John the Baptist. We don't even know that he really existed. We have no idea. He certainly, in the role that he plays in the Gospels, he seems, so to speak, too good to be true. He seems very much like a fictional character. Could very well be. Certainly the first century Judea of the time when he would have been there was chock-a-block with flea-ridden prophets wandering all around and yelling at people. So it could be, we'll never know. I myself think it's far more likely than not that he wasn't real, that he's just a fictional character. But a fascinating fictional character. And I've read a few works of, well, instead of historical fantasy, let's call it biblical fiction. Amounts to the same thing. I've read a few works of biblical fiction about John the Baptist that didn't do much for me. There isn't much to work with. But I seem to remember that I remember that this book did a much better job. John is a fascinating character. I mean, he's a miracle worker. He has a miraculous birth. He is a messianic figure to such an extent that he has to tell people that he's not the Messiah. He checks so many of the boxes that even the learned start to think. It'll be fascinating to see. I'm sure that my memory will start to jog the more I read this thing. And then finally, the last of the big heavy hardcovers is directly connected to BookTube. Yesterday, for BookTube at War, I talked about Tanner's book, Stonewall in the Valley, about 1862, about the Shenandoah Valley campaign of General Stonewall Jackson, and how much I loved the book. And when I was done with that video, and when I was putting all of the books that I was showing you away, I was thinking about other books that I've read. I mentioned in that video a couple of biographies of Jackson, but I've also read a couple of accounts of the Shenandoah Valley campaign, and I remember really liking one of them. Peter Cousins has done a whole bunch of books on Civil War battles, and his book about the Shenandoah campaign is quite good. And lo and behold, there it is. I found a copy at the Brattle. A little bit water crimpled there, but I can live with that. It'll dry out. And I'm all set to read this. I'm completely primed to read it. I'm all up on all of the trivia and details, so I'll be able to see. I'll be able to immediately compare this with the Tanner book, which had to be on Cousin's mind the whole time he was writing this thing. He had to know. I mean, he did a very good book, in my opinion, the best book on the Battle of Chickamauga. And it's different with the Battle of Chickamauga because the ground is pretty much your own. You have a whole bunch of 19th century historians, a whole bunch of pious, very early 20th century historians. The ones, when I say very early, the ones writing before the World War One. But you don't have any actual competition when it comes to a popular press, popular release, big fat history of the Battle of Chickamauga. Whereas when it's the Shenandoah campaign, you do and you know it. There's no point in wondering about that. There's no point in debating that. Tanner's book had to be on Cousin's mind the whole time that he was writing this thing, which came out, I think I might have reviewed this. 2008. I might very well have reviewed this. I will check. Sometimes I forget to check. I'll check, and if I can find a review, I'll leave a link down below. Actually, to any of these things, if I can find a link for John the Baptizer, maybe I wrote about it. I'll leave a link down below. Although, keep in mind, even if I forget, usually if you go to Google and type in my first and last name, and then as much information about whatever you're wondering whether or not I've written about it, usually that will turn things up. That's generally how I find them. But we shall see. I could easily have written about this. But anyway, that is my Brattle trip for today. Beautiful, temperate day. Just this time last week, just walking outside and standing there without doing anything, you started to swim and sweat. And today, beautiful and crisp, like autumn. So we have Shenandoah 1862. We have John the Baptizer. We have the Covenant of Water. Very happy to get this thing at the Brattle. We have The Richness of Life, the best of Stephen Jay Gould. We have the Eustis Diamonds by Anthony Trollope. We have a big anthology of Rudyard Kipling. This may be a double. I'd be a little bit abashed if it were, but you never know. We have The Good Apprentice by Iris Murdoch. And we have the Mobile Library, the first book in the Mobile Library books, The Case of the Missing Books. Really curious to know if any of you know this series. And maybe it's beloved. Maybe it's a lot more beloved than I remember. And we also have The Bean. Hi there, baby. You used to be the girl. So that's it. That was my Brattle trip this morning. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. Don't know if I'll be going back this week. Could be, could not. But if I do, you'll be the first to know. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.